people, if they're self-employed, believe in themselves a little more? Is that part of it?
Yeah, what happens is sometimes when I've been out and networking with other business people, you come across somebody that isn't quite sure of themselves, and then they will end up sort of talking to me about how to build up their confidence. You know, it's been quite shocking sometimes. You'll meet a business owner and they've got quite a large concern. I'm thinking of a PR company that I worked with before, and the owner and managing director of this company, he had no self-confidence. He found it really uncomfortable to sell himself to other businesses, and he's running this PR agency. And I was quite taken aback, but we were working on, how to build his business up, how he needed to present himself and come across with confidence. And we worked probably a couple of years actually on that. I'm not saying that everyone needs that long time to sort of develop themselves, but sometimes it is a matter of trying to get them focused and confident and happy within themselves with what they're doing.
I think, public relations to an extent is part of the creative community, and I can personally attest to being a creative. I find it intimidating to do that sales side of things. So I think it's kind of more common amongst the creative community.
Yeah, it's because that whole thing in your head about selling yourself, selling your business, selling something that's very personal to you, being creative as well as when you're an artist, you've created this beautiful painting and you don't want any criticism.
Yeah.
So you're not going to put yourself out there to face criticism, because you feel like what's going to happen is it'll just destroy you and it'll destroy your business. And
that's like most artists become more popular after they're dead.
Yeah.
Which, if you're running a business, that's not the way you want it. You want to be you want to have the success while you're living and can enjoy it.
Absolutely. So what tends to happen is unless the person can do that stuff and work on themselves and work on the whole framework of the business, how people perceive them, take away all that fear of failure, fear of not being good enough and being fake, that they're not going to be able to create this very successful business, because they've actually got to really be this person rather than pretend.
Now, there are kind of three elements to your business. There's the business coaching, which can be broken into the kind of the self-employed person that we've kind of been talking about, but also people that work for a big business.
Yeah.
Both on the management side and the employee side. And then there's the personal coaching. So let's talk about the context of you working with bigger firms, and what's your role with that?
Okay, so bigger companies, you're always dealing with people, so that's never changing. It's always people, but obviously the types of industries and size of organisations does mean you have to take a totally different approach. So for one instance, I worked with a very large international baggage handlers, and when I went in there, I was working with maybe two of the senior management team, and again there was complete chaos right from the top right through to the bottom, with the way that the processes, with the way that the communication, and also with the senior management, the way they came across with the staff. So there was quite a lot of work for me to do. I worked with that baggage handlers probably for about 3 years maybe, but what happened is I worked with, first of all, with those two managements, senior management, worked on their development of their roles, really turned it around, got them communicating at different levels with their staff, looking at how to develop the staff, looking at who were the talent. I then was introduced to their other managers, so like the second tier down from them, worked with the managers within that, helped them to feel confident with what their role, knew exactly what they needed to do, how they needed to develop it, relationships, building that idea of being the best that they could be within their roles, and then communicating that down to their teams, which were hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard thing to do, but we actually turned that baggage handlers, specifically at Gatwick, around to the point where these senior managers went on and did much bigger things with their careers within the organisation.
That's excellent. So that's how you work kind of at the corporate level. What about, and we've touched on this already, what about the self-employed or small business owner?
So the small business owner is always, depending on how long the business is running, they're always trying to find new business to try and build the business. But a lot of the time, it's like having a bucket with a hole in it. You're turning on the tap, and the customers, everything is falling right through the bottom, because what they're doing is, by focusing on future customers, they're not keeping the current customers happy. They're not thinking on how to build up that value, trust with their clients, and therefore they're always running and reactive. And what I do is I take them out of the business and make them look at the whole business structure, at where they really want, what they want the business for, why did they go into that business in the beginning, what sort of income are they really looking to make from that business. And that's about making them profitable. So another one of my clients is a manufacturer. He was in a partnership before. The partnership fell apart. We worked out to take over that business. He had probably about 5 or 6 staff. Now he's got 30.
Wow.
I've been working with him now about I don't know, about 6 years or so. But the company now is turning over millions. It was turning over maybe 100,000 when we started work. But yeah, it's doing so well. But we had to shift him in from that tiny small business mindset to this business that wants to reach out globally and has a good communication with staff and structure, and with clients, customers, suppliers, and so they've really got this presence in their market now. It's fantastic.
Nice.
Watching them grow.
Congratulations on that. It's a big success.
Absolutely, but working together, they had to have an open mind towards what they were doing.
Do you ever get any pushback from people that say, I'm not doing that? Especially if it's a more corporate situation where you're brought in by management and you get the employees saying, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I had a really funny, it wasn't funny at the time, but I had a funny situation where the finance director of an IT company, and I'd been instructed to come into the company. It was really to benefit all the team, everyone. It was about the company saying to them, we value you, so we're going to get her in to work with you to really develop everything that you want within your role, so you know what you want and can start really enjoying it. But he came into this meeting room with me with a bright red face, full of anger. And I'm thinking, is this man going to punch me? And I said to him, what's the problem? I can see in your face you're very angry, you're very red. And he said, I don't want to work with you. And I said, well, that's okay, because I don't want to work with you either. You've got, a lot of things going on with yourself. You're not open. You're obviously frustrated with things with the company, so you're very unhappy. It's not going to work. So you need to go out the door, you need to shut the door after you, and you need to really think about whether this is the right company for you. And after that, he put in a complaint, and then, probably about 3 to 6 months down the line, he tried to sue the company and everything, but they were so good with him, so good. But not because he didn't try and sue because of me, but just he was an angry person that didn't fit in with that company. He really didn't have a good ethos towards his work. He was bringing everyone's motivation down, very negative, and then he left. And sometimes that's how it's got to be.
Yeah, it's kind of the medical situation. Sometimes you have to sever a limb to save the life.
That's a good way of putting it. I'm not sure I want to think
a little more
about
graphic.
a
little more graphic than we probably needed to get. But that's where my mind goes. Now let's talk about the personal coaching.
Yeah.
Now it's becoming more and more popular, but it always, to me, sounded so Californian. I've got a life coach or a personal coach. But it's not like that anymore. It really helps people.
It really helps. And the issue with, I would say, a lot of people in the UK is that it's, even though it's been going now for quite some time and it's come over from America, so it's, an English mentality is, I'm too reserved to look at silly things like that. But actually, what happens is I've been out and, at a bar, or I've been out in different contexts, and I've been getting into a conversation with an absolute stranger. And I found out that they're very unhappy in their marriage, or they're very unhappy in their job, or they're just generally very unhappy because of their childhood. And before long, we're having this session in this bar or hotel or wherever I've met them, and I'm thinking, we need to take this out of this place, and you need to get help. If you want me to help you, I will, and there's my card. And it's come about more like that, because once someone really focuses on what's making them very unhappy, and actually that there is a way out of this unhappiness, and that by working on themselves and working with somebody like myself who is pretty tough on them, I don't let them get away with things.
And knowing you a little bit, you can be brutal.
Yeah.
But it helps sometimes, because your friends will offer friendly critiques, and I think you tend to kind of take them with a grain of salt and think, I'll take that under advisement, but whatever. But when you've got somebody who is more analytical and just looks at the problem and tries to fix the problem, that's a whole lot different.
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly how it is. It's having that person on the outside that is like a sounding board to you, really. But because they're not your friend, they can tell you how it really is. And I've always been really good at that, especially in ex-relationships. But, it's looking at it from a constructive point of view rather than trying to destroy them and make them feel unhappy with life or anything, because I would never want that. I want them to come away from our sessions feeling like that there was a puzzle and their life was all bits and pieces of this puzzle, and it was all in a bit of a mess, but gradually over time we've put the puzzle back together and we've made a clear framework of this puzzle that really makes sense, and they're so happy.